Dubbed the Shockwave, it's an evil collection of corkscrews, boomerangs and teardrop loops. Shockwave was designed by former rocket scientist Ron Toomer from Aerodynamics. He's used Newtonian physics, advanced geometry and computer technology to put your body through some of the most demented configurations you ever thought possible. In the space of a few minutes, you're turned upside down 6 times, 3 of them while you're still 13 stories above the ground. Shockwave is billed as the world's tallest and fastest roller coaster. Riders are lifted 17 stories, up here where the air is thin and your blood goes cold. Then you drop into a vortex of mind-numbing twists and turns, reaching around 120 kilometres an hour or 75 miles an hour as you hurtle around the track. People ride roller coasters basically because they're masochists. They want to be profoundly frightened, but they don't want to be injured. And that's why a lot of work's gone into the safety aspects of Shockwave. There's literally 100-odd sensors that are dotted around the track, which divide it up into sectors or blocks. And should any of the cars accelerate or decelerate above or below certain parameters, the rides shut down automatically. There's also a computer that reads whether all of the riders have got these safety collars on, otherwise the ride won't leave this loading area. The only problem is that once you've got them on, you can't get off. As my train eased its way from the loading dock, it passed over the first of the sensors. Among other things, they allow the supervising staff to know exactly where the trains are in the ride. With a possible 3 trains hurtling around at any one time, there's little margin for error. The whole structure is governed by a mainframe computer downstairs with each of the thousands of sensors, electrical circuits and strain gauges laid out in what's known as ladder logic. The only sensors they don't have is one for the passengers to see whether they're going into cardiac arrest. That's not my knees knocking. Shockwave subjects riders to stresses and manoeuvres that were almost impossible for wooden roller coasters until the mid-1970s. They tried circular loops on woodies many years ago, and they were abandoned because they were too dangerous. A Bavarian roller coaster designer named Schwarzkopf came up with what's now known as the clothoid loop. The teardrop-shaped buckles in the ride that can turn a trainload of screaming patrons upside down in an instant.
It's really like flying in a stunt plane. But the beauty of these clothoid loops is that they smooth out the G-forces. They're only pulling about 2.7 positive Gs. And then when you go into the inverted loop, when you're hanging out of the seat, it's about -1.
With the clothoid loop, the varying radii of the loop slows the car at the beginning where the radius is wider and speeds them up at the top where the radius is shorter. Thus, gravity is overwhelmed by centrifugal force and you sit firmly in your seat.
Oh boy, that's a ride.
Of course, you know what this means. With the physics of the loop mastered and computers to oversee the rides, the possible permutations of roller coaster types becomes quite frightening. One thing's for certain, the coasters of the future are going to get bigger, higher and faster. I suppose the gamble for park operators is public acceptance. After all, how much terror can one body take? But then maybe the kids and big kids of the future will be made of more resilient stuff. Maybe too they'll be smart enough to take motion sickness tablets before they go on the ride.